And we are, I think, live? We're live. Hello, my name is Ben Campbell. Welcome to Off the Cuff. This is a show where I take viewer submitted questions from the Discord server, which is discord.gg/self-improvement, and I answer them here in a sort of off the cuff format. I am a men's coach specializing in dating and social matters. I also do some productivity stuff, and I am joined today by my friend and former client, the wonderful Anton Toya. Anton, say hello.
Hello, guys.
We're getting more fluid with that intro, I think. And let me just check that you're not muted in this. No, you're not. Good, because last week we had that problem. All right. Let me go into the questions. I got one question here. I've been into this girl that I know, but we haven't seen each other or talked to each other in months. I'm looking to text her on Instagram, but it feels creepy to ask her on a date out of the blue. Is there a better way to go about it? Let me think about this for a second. No, I mean, first of all, it's not creepy. If you say you've known this girl, we haven't seen her talk to each other in months, been into this girl that I know. So, I mean, there's a little context missing here, but there's two things that could possibly be the case. Either you've dated her in the past, or she doesn't know that you're into her at all. And either, like, if it's the first case, I mean, you can just text. So I'm assuming it's the second, that she doesn't know that you're into her, you've talked maybe before in the past, whatever. The thing that you can use, first of all, no, it's not creepy to just reach out and ask her on a date. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It's the same, like, I advocate for even doing that publicly in the street. I do it, Anton does it, plenty of my clients do it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with just expressing your interest in somebody. But there is a caveat to how you do it in a non-creepy, non-threatening way. And it is by demonstrating that you're understanding that what you're doing might be strange. So if this is someone that you're friends with, for example, it's like, people often have this worry that, oh, if this is someone I've been friends with for a while, if I suddenly ask them out, it's going to be weird. And there's the topic of the friend zone, which we can go into another time. But basically, you want to use what's called a pre-frame. And this is a tool that's used in sales, but you can use it very effectively in all social matters. I'd argue it's one of the most powerful social tools. And basically, the premise is you take anything that might seem strange or put people off or come across weird, and you put it out in the open so that they understand that you understand the implications of your actions and the implications of your words. So for example, before I go into your specific scenario, this is an example I use quite a lot. If you're in a coffee shop and you think the barista is really cute and you want to ask her out, maybe you're in this coffee shop all the time, you don't want to make things weird for her. If you just walk up and you go, hey, you're really cute, can I get your number? You're dumping a whole load of implication into this person's lap that increases the already necessary pressure of asking them out in the first place. If you instead go, hey, first of all, I understand that this is a very forward thing to do. I don't want to put you in the spot. I get that you're working right now and I'm holding up the line, so I'll just make this quick. I think you're really cute. I'd love to get your number. Feel free to say no and I won't make things weird for you. It's like there's a lot going on there and you might stumble over your words or whatever, but it's better to be nervous and still put yourself forward than it is to fake confidence or to go into it and do it in a way that puts all of the pressure on them. And so by doing this, even though it can be a little bit clunky, you're demonstrating that you're aware, that you're socially competent, basically. You're demonstrating that you're aware of all of the consequences of what you're doing, and it takes a hell of a lot of pressure off. Now, if you're asking somebody out, there's inherent pressure there. There's going to be pressure either way, and that can't be avoided. That's just part of life. Like, you speak to each other, people get nervous, it's whatever. But by doing this, you can make people a hell of a lot more comfortable. And so in your specific scenario, you like, this might be someone that you're friends with, this is someone that you haven't seen in a while. Rather than just texting out the blue and saying, hey, would you like to go out on a date? You can say, you can, like, the things that you've said in this message, it feels creepy to ask her out of the blue. Is there a better way to do it? I wouldn't say that it's creepy. And again, I have a post on being creepy at discord.gg/self-improvement. If you go to the social section, it's can't remember what it's called, but creepy is in the title and explains why people feel that certain things are creepy and how to avoid that. But simply by saying, hey, I recognize this is out of the blue, or if you're friends, I recognize this is out of the blue and I don't want to jeopardize our friendship, but this is how I'm feeling and I'd like to take you out on a date. How do you feel about that? Right? And so if you do it in this way, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I can go into the creepy thing as well, I suppose. So creepy tends to come from one of two things. Either this person doesn't really know what else to say, or they're just not interested, and creepy is just a label that they use for things that they don't like. There's nothing that you can do about that, and you shouldn't feel bad about being labeled creepy just for putting yourself forward. The other scenario is if there is a dissonance between how you are feeling and how you're acting, or if you're not socially calibrated enough to the situation. So say, for example, you just walk up to some random person in the street and you go, hey, you got a really nice ass. That's creepy, right? Most of the time. To certain people, that's fine, but that's creepy. If you instead walk up and you go, hey, I don't mean to be weird. I understand this is a very forward thing to say, and if it makes you uncomfortable, please tell me and I'll back the fuck off. But your ass is fantastic, and I've been staring from over there for the past 10 minutes. Like, do you squat? Do you work out? Can I get an ass like that? Completely different energy, simply because, like, the thing that you're saying and the compliment that you're giving is exactly the same, but the energy that you're going into it with and the surrounding sort of context for what you're saying is completely different. And so you can put people at ease by saying things like this. I'm yet to write a post on pre-frames, but I'm going to be doing that. It'll be available in the social forum. And just for anybody that doesn't know, in the Discord server, discord.gg/self-improvement, link in the description, there's a bunch of free posts on all these sorts of things, like how to approach people, how to not be creepy, all of this stuff. So to circle back and sort of summarize to answer your question, no, it's not creepy. It's not weird to just ask people out. But if you put a little bit of context around it and demonstrate that you understand that what you're doing is putting this person on the spot, it takes a hell of a lot of the pressure off. So just don't be afraid and fucking go for it, mate. You got anything to add to that, Anton?
Well, the person in question, if I remember, said, by doing this in a text message, would you say it would be more beneficial in person, or
if
it doesn't matter?
I don't think it. If this is somebody that they know, I don't think it matters. Like, I advocate for, say, you just see a random person in the street, go up and talk to them and say hi to them, whatever. And then it is better to do these things in person because there's more of like a connection can be built. Like there's like an energetic transfer thing going on. Like in person is a lot better, but you don't want to put people on the spot. If you already know this girl and you've talked to them before, but it's been a while since you've spoken, texting and going, hey, let's meet up, and then doing it in person, I think is better in like an old fashioned sense and might work out better, but it's still putting pressure on that person. Whereas if you've not spoken to them in a while and you reach out and you go, hey, like if you want to go out with them on a date and you want to invite them out, rather than waiting till in person to do it, I would just text them what you're feeling. And it might be misconstrued and it might go badly or it might not. It's really it's up to them to decide, but that's the same either way. I don't think it's necessary to meet them in person first.
Okay, what about the following scenario? If it's one of your colleagues, you see her daily, you like her, but you didn't mention it to her yet,
then I would do it in person. Yeah, if this is someone you see in person, like if you don't see, it's the same as like, oh, maybe I should just phone them instead. Like, I think phone calls are better than text messages on the whole, but if you're talking about putting pressure on somebody, like asking them out, or like not like you're deliberately putting pressure on, but asking somebody out does put pressure on them. I would say a text message, if your normal, whatever your normal method of communication with this person is, do it through that method. So if you normally text them it. If you normally phone them it. If you normally see them in person, do it in person. And if this is a coworker, again, it goes back to pre-frames. You go, hey, I understand that we work together and I really don't want to fuck up this situation that we have going on, so please don't let me make you uncomfortable or anything like that, but I have to express that I'm interested in you and I'd like to take you out on a date, right? There's nothing wrong with doing that, even if HR says it's bad, right? There's nothing wrong with doing that as long as you're not deliberately or accidentally putting the other person in a really uncomfortable shitty situation. Like if you have a coworker, and especially if you're in a position of power and you're like, hey, I think you're really cute, let's go out sometime, not everybody knows how to respond to that. Simply by adding hey, I understand that this puts a lot of pressure on you and that we work together and I do not want to make things weird in the workplace, but this is how I feel. It gives them the freedom to say no to you, and it gives them the freedom to understand that you understand what you're doing. Even in the majority of cases, like most people are not compatible with most other people, and in the majority of cases, when you ask people out, it's not gonna. It's not that it's not gonna go well, but you're not gonna get like an immediate yes and enthusiastic response. That's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But and all that it means is that person now has like and I've spoken to plenty of women about this. As a woman, if you're in the workplace surrounded by guys, and say you're like a very attractive woman, you're going to be a hell of a lot more comfortable around the guy that has very openly and honestly expressed that and taken no for an answer, and everything's totally cool and you're friends now, than the guys that you can see leering and talking about you behind your back but won't actually say anything to your face, you know? And it's the same with the girl in the coffee shop. Like I've had that experience. There's like a place that I visit regularly, and somebody that works there, and then I go and talk to her, and she rejects me, and I go, "Okay, no problem. I'll see you tomorrow for a coffee." You know, and I go back, and everything's friendly and everything's cool because you know where each other stand. Like the problem with asking people out and getting a bad response is not that it didn't work out. It's that there are all sorts of implications and stuff tied in with that, and often for women, it can be like men sometimes forget that we're physically imposing. And there's a hell of a lot of creepy, weird dudes out there, and people that are way too forward, and people that are way too like aggressive. And if a girl says no to them, they call them a bitch and a whore and all of this stupid shite, right? And so if you want to be a guy that's doing this in a healthy and honest way, there's nothing wrong with being forward, but you have to make people comfortable, and you have to be very, very clear that you understand what you're doing and that you understand the implications of your thoughts and your actions. And if you do that, you make other people comfortable around you. And even when it goes badly, they still appreciate you, and they go, "Thank you so much for the compliment, thank you for being honest with me, and thank you for not being a creep and a weirdo and all of this stuff." Like, there's nothing wrong with asking people out and getting rejected. The wrong thing is all of the weight and all of the implication that comes with that if it's not dispelled in the first place. That makes sense?
It does. And I thought you was gonna say it would always be better in person, but I actually agree with it. Like, whatever your normal way of communicating with this person is the best way to do it. Because for example, me in this case, I've been working on my social skills for the past 3-4 years, that I just become more skilled in this area than I am in like calling and texting. So I would prefer it to do it in person, because the feedback you can have from somebody's facial expression or body language is way quicker than through text, and you can calculate way better.
Yeah,
but
for
that's
sure.
because of who I am as a person. It's not for everybody.
Yeah, and I would say that in person is generally better. But again, if I'll give you an example from, like, it depends on the circumstance. If you see someone out in the street, like, yeah, go and talk to them. Don't get their number and then try and text them later. Like, have a conversation in person, because you're in person. Like, do it as soon as possible. If you see this person regularly, like this person asking this question, if you see this other person, just wait until you see them in person and do it then, because it's just better. But for example, like, I came across a girl on Tinder like a week ago that I dated 4 years ago, I think, roughly 4 years ago. And I came across her on Tinder, and I just texted her on Instagram, and then we went out on a date. And but it's like we have history, and so we have an understanding, and it's easier to just text. If this is someone that you haven't seen in a while, and you're unlikely to bump into them in person, I just think that unless it's like, if this is someone you haven't seen in a while, if you're friends, then you can go, yeah, let's meet in person, right? And he does say friends, to be fair. Like, if this is someone it's normal for you to go out and see them in person. But otherwise, if this is someone that you don't just like go and get a coffee with, and then you go, hey, look, let's go get a coffee, and then you make the thing, it's like they might feel like you've tricked them into coming out or whatever it is, or ambushed them or whatever. It's better to just send a text if that's your normal mode of communication between the two of you. Does that make sense? Like, whatever the normal way of you seeing each other is, do it that way. Yeah. Someone says in the chat, "Hey Ben, what's up? How are you?" I'm good, man. How are you doing? You got any questions for us that you want to type in the chat whilst I go and look for another one?
I do have one, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go on.
I was wondering, what is your opinion on people reading self-help books? Because I feel like the majority of people who are into self-development, for sure, read like a few of the self-development books out there. Like, for example, when I was younger, I saw in the bookstore The Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And yeah, I was wondering, do you think it's something very beneficial, or something that people have to look into, or you think it's not necessary?
I don't think it's necessary. I do certainly think it's helpful. The problem is, like, as you say, there's a lot of really shit self-development stuff out there, and there's a lot of people that are very good at marketing, and they understand people's problems, and they're using people's problems to make a quick buck. And I don't really like. I'll admit, in the past, like I've been in on the self improvement path or whatever since I was 14. I'm 27 now, so that's what, like 13 years. For the first 4 years, I was just reading constantly, and I pirated a lot of books, and I bought a lot of books, and I got a lot of free samples off Amazon and stuff, and I read a lot of self-help books, and a lot of them were really shit. Some of them were really good, and but a lot of them were really shit. And I haven't read most of the major ones, like Mark Manson's ones, or now my mind is just completely going back. I have a list of ones that I want to read, like the War of Art, like Stephen Pressfield's stuff, Mini Habits by Geis, I think his name is. Like there's ones that have gained a lot of popularity and gained circles around them, and I would say that those are probably quite good. I don't know, I haven't read them. I have spoken to people that have read them, and I've got the lessons from those people. But I mean, it's a different thing. But I think if you're just getting into self-improvement, it can be difficult to find sources of good information, because a lot of this shit is way simpler than a lot of people say it is, and there's a lot of people selling very expensive products that don't really help. Like there's a lot of courses and seminars and things like this, and you know, I charge $5,000 for a weekend course, so I'm hardly someone that can talk, but I know that it works, and it's like a genuinely valuable thing. Whereas I've spoken to other people in the scene that they pay like $10,000 to go on a weekend thing with these, and they come back and none of their problems have changed. They feel great, and they've got like information and stuff, but nothing in their life has actually changed. There's nothing actionable that they've taken away from it besides more information. And there is a sort of like there's this concept of I call it procrastination, where it's or like mental masturbation, procrastination, where you're reading and watching stuff, but you're not applying anything. And I do think that is a valuable step in self-improvement. Like I say, for the first 3 or 4 years, I did nothing but read. And I feel like when I did start to take action, that propelled me forward. But the problem arises if you're taking information from sources that is erroneous or unnecessary or even false. And this is what happens a lot with guys that get into pickup. It's like there's a lot of books and a lot of videos and a lot of stuff surrounding the pickup culture. And it all seems like great advice. And then you start doing it and you're like, oh my God, this works. And then it ruins your entire fucking life because it sends you down a dark path. So I don't know. It's a difficult question. No, I don't think that it's bad to get into self-improvement stuff. Like I'm predominantly a writer at this point of self-improvement material, but it's I suppose the trick is finding good sources, and I think that's easier today than it was like maybe 10-15 years ago when I was getting into it, because like a lot of the sources that I was around back then, like pickup was a thing, but it didn't have such a public reputation. It was a very underground thing, and even though it was very popular, and like a lot of these marketers and shitty self-help books, it's like it was a lot easier for those to there was less of a conglomeration of information and like echo chambers forming around things, and there was less scrutiny placed on sources of information. I think like there's a lot more of that stuff today, but it's a lot easier for the individual to discern what's good and what's not, I think. And it's not always that what's popular and what has good reviews is necessarily best, but you know, I think you can trust people like Mark Manson, people like Stephen Geis, people like, I think his name's Stephen Geis, people like Stephen Pressfield, and to write good books and give good information because they have a track record and they have lots of people that have applied that stuff and done well from it. I don't know. It's a complicated question, but that's the same with anything in life. It's like you navigate life. There's so much fucking information out there, and some of it's really good and some of it's really bad, and you can go down whatever path you want to go down, and it's up to the individual to discern A, what is right in the first place, and then B, what is right for them. I don't know. It's a complicated question with a complicated answer. I don't have that answer.
Yeah, it's depending on also on many factors, like who's your personality. Like I used to, before I met you, I bought a lot of self-help books, like 10, 15, and I read them all, and it gave me like a feeling of I know something more, but I never implemented the action. And for example, the book like Mini Habits, this one is very practical and it works because there's no fear in making mini habits. It's like practical steps. But the moment we are talking about this subject, like we are trying to push through barriers, through mental barriers, I think the thing that is missing for most people is a community. And this is like, for
Mm.
example, in Discord group, we have this here, and it helps you to stay accountable, because you have to take those steps that you told us to do. And that's like a big difference between a book and a community, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these books have communities. I think communities are becoming a lot more of a thing. Like, back when I started, it was old school forums and stuff, and now Discord has sort of forums, and people have their own websites, and YouTube channels have their communities behind them and stuff as well. I don't like. I appreciate you pushing the community, and of course, I built it, so I do think it's valuable, and I agree with everything you're saying. But at the same time, just because something has a big following doesn't necessarily mean that you can trust it. I think it's, and I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot here, but I think it's important for the individual to like, discernment's a really important skill, and I guess it takes, like, you got to make your own mistakes. Like, I ended up going against pickup and going in the opposite direction because I tried it and I saw what it did, like, to my fucking soul, and lots of other people do the same thing. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of shitty self-development information out there, but like, part of me thinks that's part of the journey and the evolution is failing and doing things badly and reading the bad information and applying it and fucking up and then going, okay, this doesn't work, what's next? And I think the important part of that is that you don't give up. And there is a problem in the self-improvement industry where there's a hell of a lot of shitty advice out there. And then so people come in and they read stuff and they see courses for 10 grand and they're like, I can't afford that shit. And worse, they like spend their life savings on something that doesn't work, and then it disillusions them and they end up giving up, and they think that they can't change and they can't get better. And I really do think it's like self-improvement. The difficult thing is not necessarily the application, or even I suppose it's finding the information. But everything, like, from an insider's perspective, like, as someone who has gone through a lot of this process and kind of understands how shit works now and how people behave and how just the main important thing in self-improvement is understanding change, like understanding how to change. And then you can apply that to any area of your life. It's like understanding your own psychology and like why do I get held back? Why do I have these thoughts? What can I do about it? How can I step outside of myself and influence my own behavior in the direction that I want it to go? And that's everything, basically. And I think the main problem is that people are not taught at an early age that they have some control over their life and how they think and how they feel and like how to go about different things. And so they look to other people for answers, and that's not necessarily bad. But they don't, what am I trying to say here? They don't understand the simplicity of it. Does that make sense? Like, because like everything that we've done together, now that you understand it, is it not really simple?
It is, like, but it's not easy.
It's not easy. And literally everything I teach boils down to you understanding that you have fears and mindsets that hold you back, and then pushing past those fears and mindsets through a combination of mental reprogramming and taking action that gives you results that are different to it. And then it reshapes the way that you see the world and the way that you act in the world, which changes the results that you get, and then everything in your life changes as a result. And that on paper sounds really simple. And yeah, I suppose the process is difficult. It's hard. It's not complicated. Yep. And I think a massive problem in the self-improvement industry is people get way too niche down into obsessing over little details on things and like micromanaging everything and thinking that everything needs to be tremendously difficult in order to change because it's hard to change. And so they think that the solution also needs to be complicated. Does that make sense? Have I just gone on a ramble for nothing, or does that click?
It does make a lot of sense. It is very simple. Like when I talk to people about dating right now, to my friends and stuff, like, I see it's so simple, and most of them don't. And it's like for example, I was talking with my friend today, and he is like a bit lost in the gaming and stuff. And he was having this date yesterday, and he was giving like a full-on breakdown throughout the whole date of when he should like initiate physical contact and want to pull and want to. And I was like,
yeah, that is the thing about the pickup guys. They micromanage everything and they break it down into like a complete fucking formula. rather than like everything I teach in dating, because like people have called me a dating coach in the past. I prefer to say that I'm a social coach, even though most of what I teach to guys is dating related stuff, because guys that come and they want a social coach, they want it so they can get a girlfriend. Like that's it's an important and primary need. I'm not diminishing how important the need for like self-actualization through finding like friends and partners and stuff is, but and like having some sense of physical touch in your life and some emotional connection and sexuality and all of that's very, very important to people's mental health and like just general life satisfaction. And I understand that. But yeah, like a lot of the pickup stuff, it breaks down in like everything that I teach is basically become more comfortable with yourself and understand who you are. Learn how to behave in an authentic way and learn how to push past your own fears and like negative A, self-perception, and B, expectations about what's going to happen, so that you can get the results that you want by taking action toward them, right? And everybody that does this gets everybody that does this gets results. And I've heard every single excuse that there is. Like people come up with excuses as to why it won't work for them, and then they do it and it works for them because it's just how things work. It's just like you do A, you get B. It's just how things work. But all the pickup stuff is kind of predicated on the idea that it's like rather than combating those fears and combating that like I can't get what I want for XYZ reasons, pickup plays into that and it goes, yes, you can't get what you want for XYZ reasons, but you can pretend to be someone that can. And if you just act in a certain way, you can trick people's psychology into giving you what you want. And so it massively overcomplicates things and creates this sort of structured, they do this, you say this, like blah fucking bullshit. Yes. And it does work. It works, but it works on people that are impressionable, and it works on people that are easy to manipulate, and it works on the wrong kind of people. And it does two things simultaneously. The first is that you're just like preying upon emotionally vulnerable people, and for the most part, it's like there are some good women that just get tricked by it in the first place usually once and never again, which is a massive problem because it ruins the whole fucking dating scene, because women don't trust men anymore, men don't trust women anymore. It's like creating even further of a divide, which is accentuating the problem, which is pushing people further into their little fucking circles. But then the other thing is that it teaches you, like if you're someone that never got what you wanted by quote unquote being yourself, right? Even though you need to develop confidence and actually work on your shit in order to get things that you want. By not understanding that, or understanding it and not doing the work and turning to something manipulative like pickup techniques, what happens is that it teaches you that you're not good enough. Because if you never got what you wanted by being yourself, and then you pretended to be someone else and you put a fucking mask on, like a pseudo personality to interact with the world, and then suddenly you're getting attention from women and you're sleeping with people and you're getting phone numbers and stuff like that, what it teaches you is that you're not good enough. And then God forbid you actually get results, because you reach a point where it's like, well, if this person finds out who I really am, then they would reject me, they wouldn't love me, and so you have to keep this fucking mask on, and it just isolates you further from the thing that you actually wanted, which is intimacy and connection and all of these things. You become like a shell of your former self with a fucking happy face on, and it's bullshit, and I've seen it destroy people. It's really fucked up. Someone says in the chat, very true, great take. I've seen so many people drift too far into very, very niche topics and forget about the bigger picture. Yeah, it's fair. I mean, I think as guys, we like to understand things, and we like problem solving, and we like solutions, and we like to build a framework around stuff and like a technical understanding of it for the most part. I think that's kind of a masculine quality. But then what happens is we get some form of reward from that. And so rather than actually fixing the problems in our lives, we reward ourselves by telling ourselves that we have an understanding of it. And so rather than actually applying things and doing the difficult work of actually changing, we just go, oh, I am suddenly enlightened and now I have a greater understanding of it. And then because it's so simple, it's like once you understand it, you're like, no, there must be more to this, right? Like I have a friend, I did a podcast with him a while ago. Maybe I should re-release it because I think I deleted it off the old. This was years and years ago. But I have a hypnotherapist friend, and he had a friend that was friends with somebody on a Indian reserve in the States, or like a tribal reserve somewhere. And they all went to do plant medicine. I can't remember exactly what it was. It might have been ayahuasca. It might have been some mescaline derivative from some kind of cactus. But anyway, he goes to this reserve, and they are handing out like bits of cactus, and everybody's munching on the cactus. And one of the guys comes up to him one of the guys from the tribe, and he goes, you do what I do. You don't do what they do. You do what I do. And so he says all the white people, he puts, are munching on the cactus, and all the tribes people are, pretending to bite into the cactus. They're not actually biting into the cactus. They're just pretending, whereas all the white people are drinking it. And as they're handing out the cups, they give my friend Adam, they give him just, he looks down and it's not this green paste that everybody else has got. It's just water as well. No, sorry, I'm fucking up the story. So they all pretend to eat the cactus, and then they hand out water to everybody. But Adam's isn't water, it's this weird green liquid, and he drinks the green liquid. And he's tripping balls, having a wonderful time, like seeing God and all of this stuff, whilst everybody else is having that experience, but they're also throwing up and shitting themselves, and like all of the effects of taking some plant. Like people have had this experience on ayahuasca where it's called purging, and they're like throwing up and shitting themselves, and it's supposed to be part of the experience. It's your body getting rid of all of the shit. And he goes to the guy afterwards and he's like, what the fuck? Like you gave me this thing that was like wonderful and I didn't shit myself, whereas all these people are really struggling and going through this horrible traumatic experience. Why don't you give them the liquid? Why do you give them the cactus? And he goes, well, I used to give people the cactus, but then the guy down the street that was giving I used to give people the water, but then the guy down the street that was giving everybody else the cactus was just running me out of business. And I found he's like, you fucking white people, you need the solution to be worse than the problem. Like you need the cure to be worse than the sickness. And I thought that was very interesting. It's like we want the solution to be hard. We want it to be complicated, and we get some sort of like ego satisfaction for going through something, for making things harder than they need to be. I don't know. I think that's kind of telling.
Yeah, and those pickup guys, like, yes, it does work, like you say, but I think it drains their social battery because they can never be themselves in an interaction. They always have to like break it down and think about what to say next. And basically, you're lying against your own personality, and you're getting like inner conflicts. And with your stuff, like you just be honest, and it works way better because you can be yourself. It fuels your energy, and you get in alignment with people you actually want to be with.
Yeah.
And this constant feeling of, hey, I'm doing great, it motivates you to do it more and more. And then you end up in like such a positive live stream. Like, for example, that I am now in, like, it's beautiful. Like, it's the best feeling ever. And so also, like, I wanted to touch on something. Like, I was dating this girl from Mexico, and she was beautiful, like amazing figure, amazing personality. And like she was like a model, and she gets like a lot of attention from guys. And when she was dating me, she said, Anton, you know what? It's so cool about you. Whatever you say, I know you genuinely mean it. Like you will never like just lie about stupid things. You just tell the truth all the time, and it makes it so much easier to be with you than like all those guys who play games. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I've had the same conversation. I've had women be like, you've ruined me for other men because of how you communicate, which is a wonderful compliment, but at the same time it's kind of sad. It's like they can't find other people that will just be able to communicate with them on that level and be honest and like actually have conversations because they're not afraid of the outcomes or whatever. And the thing you were saying about pickup, it's like, yeah, it must be fucking exhausting because you're not expressing yourself authentically. You're expressing yourself in the way that you think will work. And so what most of these coaches teach is it's an evolution from fake it till you make it. It's fake it until faking it works. It's not really doing any sort of real internal change. And so they're just teaching how to be someone else and how to put on a fucking facade and trick people into getting what you want. Whereas what I teach is how to actually become the fucking authentic version of yourself and go out and find people that are compatible with you. And then from that position, you don't have to lie. You don't have to pretend to be someone else. You don't have to ever be someone that you're not or say something that you don't think or be incongruent in any way because you are deliberately filtering for people that are going to like you for exactly who you are. Which is important. Yeah, and you're experiencing the results of that, and I'm very happy about it. I want to see people do better because it's not just a problem for the individual. I think it is a societally wide problem as well. It's like these things that you've learned aren't just relevant to dating. They're relevant to your friendships. They're relevant to your working situation. They're relevant to your general life satisfaction. And I really appreciate seeing when people go through the process, and it's like, because a lot of guys, they come and their biggest problem is that they want to get laid, and that's fine. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and it's an important problem to fix. But I love seeing when people go, like, if people go through the pickup process and then they start getting laid, like, nothing else in their life has actually changed. And in fact, a lot of things have got worse. Whereas if you go through the process that I teach and then you end up getting the results that you want, you realize from that point forward that it's also changing other things in your life, and you expand your fucking, your scope beyond just fixing your immediate like sexual needs, right? And once it gets beyond that point, you're like, oh, I can address this and I can address this, and your life gets better as a result, which is wonderful. And I think that a lot of our societal problems come down to just a lack of congruence, a lack of authenticity, a lack of the ability to say and think and feel in alignment with what's internal. And this causes so many fucking problems, and not least of which in the dating scene. It's like women are going around going, where the fuck are all the good men? And men are going around going, where the fuck are all the good women? And we've sort of poisoned the well and created a rift between the genders that shouldn't even be there. You know, we're meant to coalesce. Yes. We're meant to come together. But it's like guys don't know what the fuck they want, and they don't know how to ask for it. And so what ends, and then we've created this fucking attention economy on the internet. And what happens is that they end up like all of the attention goes to like the top 10% of women, and all of the women's attention goes to the top 10% of men, and everybody underneath doesn't really understand how to get what they want, and the like, it doesn't have to be that way. It's that way because we've designed it that way. And everybody's fucking simping, and then there's a load of women out there treating men like they're disposable, and there's a bunch of men out there treating women like they're fucking callous, evil people, and we're creating this problem ourselves. And we fix it by, first of all, removing our attention from things like social media and dating apps and bullshit like that, and going out and meeting people in real life and talking to them and getting their fucking whatever, like getting a conversation going and creating real, genuine connections with people, and experiencing what it's like to have a competence socially, and to be able to actually talk to people, which is a skill that people are losing. Like I would bet my fuck it, I'd bet both of my testicles that your grandfather had better riz than you do, you know? It's like that guy could probably, like, you know, because you grew up in a time that unless your immediate circle of friends had someone that was worth you dating, you had to go out and talk to someone. There was no fucking Instagram, there was no Tinder, there was none of that shit. So if you weren't capable of going and talking to people, you were gonna die alone, you know? And I think we kind of need to bring that back. I really do. I think it's important to get the fuck away from all of these things and get back out into the real world and meet real people and become like social competence is something that most people should inherently have, and it's something that we've lost because we've replaced it with artificial bullshit, and rather than actually having to be the kind of person that's worth being friends with and worth dating and all of this stuff, it's instead all of our attention is turned towards how can I represent myself as someone that is worth dating and worth talking to. So it says in the chat, W Riz Grandpa. Yeah.
And also the thing is, it's so like easy nowadays, because the moment you approach a girl in a healthy, vulnerable way with a good vibe, it's so refreshing for her. It's on her face. This never happens anymore.
Yeah, for lack of a better term, I wanted to equate it to hunting, but it's shooting fish in a fucking barrel. Like if you are the kind of person that can go out and just talk to people in real life and have the confidence to do that, and again, if you want to be, I can teach you that stuff. Discord.gg/self-improvement. You can book a free one-on-one coaching call and we can talk about these things. If you are that kind of part, like, the competition is non-existent. The only people that are approaching women today are people like you and I, which are, it's like 1 in a million, let's be honest, or fucking crazy people that don't understand the implications of their actions, or pickup artists. And so it's kind of gotten a bad reputation. And if you ask most women, if you say to them, like, would you like to be approached in the street by a guy who thinks you're attractive, most of them will go, fuck no, because they've had bad experiences with it, or they have a negative expectation because of other people's bad experiences. But if you ask any of the women that have actually had it happen, and like from myself or from you or from any of the clients, they all go, that was wonderful, I wish more men were doing this. Like every woman in my life that I don't hide what I do at all. I've told my parents, like my mother's proud of me for it, for example. Every girl that I've ever dated, I told her exactly what I do. I've done boot camps with clients where I've gone up to the girls afterwards and be like, hey, I'm teaching them how to do this, what do you think about that? Every single one of them goes, I wish more men were doing this. I wish more men were doing this, right? Because it's not that they don't want to be approached, it's they don't want to be approached by fucking assholes. They don't want to be approached by people that don't understand the implications of their actions. They want to be approached by good, honest men with genuine intentions that are expressing a genuine interest in them. And even if you get rejected, which, let's be honest, happens 99 times out of 100, right? Maybe 9 times out of 10. It depends how good you are at this, I suppose. But like, you can't expect every interaction to go well, but even when it goes badly, it goes well because you're giving someone a compliment, you're making someone's day. It's fine. And of the like, if you go out and approach 100 people, you are going to meet people that are like, yeah, this is interesting. Let's go on a date. This sounds great, right? And it's so much easier. It's so much easier than fucking swiping past 1,000 people on Tinder and hoping some guy doesn't have better fucking pictures than you and all of this nonsense. Just go out and talk to people, and then you come across a girl that's like, oh my god, this person has confidence. He's coming up and talking to like this guy that can clearly go and talk to anyone he wants is talking to me. Wow, this is amazing. Yes, I'd love to go for coffee with you. You're right. It's like they go, oh my god, it's so fucking refreshing for this to actually happen because I'm so sick of all these fucking dudes like just asking me for pictures of my tits on Instagram. You know, it's a completely different game. And I think 100 years ago it was normal and everybody was fucking doing it, but now it's only a very small minority that are willing to push past their bullshit and get out of their comfort zone, and those people are those are the ones that will inherit the earth. Those are the, like, literally, because those are the ones that will be making kids.
Yeah. It is like you say, it's shooting fish in a barrel if you know what to do. And the people I used to be before I did my first approach, I was so afraid of just going negative. But in all the approaches that I did, it's either neutral, and most of the time it's like, oh wow, thank you, you made my day. Yeah. I wish guys did this more. And
yeah, even when they reject you, they're like, thank you so much for the compliment. This has made my day. I'm so happy this has happened. I'm off to tell my friends about it. And reevaluate my relationship with my boyfriend, because why is he not doing stuff like this?
Well, also, like, just think about how would you feel if a girl approached you and did this to you? Hey, you look handsome, but like, you would feel great about yourself as well.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. I think there's one caveat to that, and that's the physical disparity. I think it's very, very rare that if a woman approaches a guy, the guy will feel threatened in any way, or like physically threatened, or like something like he's in danger. That's very, very rare. That can happen the other way around, which is what, like, I think as a girl, there are less guards in place. Like, you can't just walk up to a guy and go, hey, you're really cute, and the guy will be like, oh my god, thank you, you know. But if you do that as a guy, there's like a little bit of a threat there as well, if you don't calibrate it with like, hey, I understand the implications of my actions, I don't want to make you uncomfortable kind of speech that we talk about. So I think that's the only caveat. Otherwise, yeah, it's exactly the same. Like, if a girl comes up to you and expresses interest in you, even if you're not interested in her, are you going to feel bad about it? No, you're going to be going, wow, thank you so much, this is great. And there are a very small, and I talk about this, I can't remember which post it is, but I have a series of posts. They're called Why You Should Make Approaches, How to Make a Good Approach, Approaching Mindsets and Next Steps. Again, discord.gg/self-improvement, link in the description. It's under the social forum. It's all free. You can read this all for free. There's a post in there that talks about this, and that there are certain times where you come across people that are very socially awkward and they do not want to be approached, and they get very clearly uncomfortable when you go and talk to them. My argument with that, and this is often used as an excuse, like guys are like, oh, I don't want to make people uncomfortable. 9 times out of 10, that's not. 99 times out of 100, you're not going to make the other person uncomfortable. And I would argue that if you are in public, that there is a certain understanding that you are going to be like, you're going to have to interact with people at some point. Like, if I'm out in public and someone, like, you're going to come across beggars, you're going to come across people trying to sell things, you're going to come across people that just want to come and talk to you. That's just going to happen if you're in public. I think that's just part of living, and that trying to tiptoe around that just creates like an insulated, fucked up society. Like, we're normal social creatures. There is some understanding and expectation that if you're in public, these kinds of things are going to happen. That being said, if you come across one of these people, like, even if you upset someone a little bit, even if you make someone uncomfortable, if you have even the smallest bit of social calibration, you can understand that that's what you're doing. You simply just go, sorry, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. And you turn around and you walk the fuck away, right? You've not brought any harm into this person's life that they have not inflicted upon themselves by allowing themselves to get to that point where they're so insular that people talking to them makes them uncomfortable, right? And that's not something that you as an individual should feel responsible for, I don't think. And again, and even, or even if you fuck up and you say something like, like something slips out your mouth that you shouldn't have said, or you do something wrong, or you scare somebody or whatever. In all of these cases, it can be solved by a sorry, didn't mean to do that. Right, and if the situation calls for it, you just walk the fuck away. Right, you've not harmed this person, you've not taken anything from them, you've given them a slight bit of minor discomfort during their day, which is going to do one of two things. And this is entirely up to them and their mindset. It's either it will insulate them further, in which case that is something that they've chosen. Like this is their own mental state. That like you and I are not these kinds of people. Some other people are, and you could argue that it's circumstances. I argue that it's their response to circumstances that puts people in that position and puts them in that mental state. It's entirely their own choice. The other thing is it gives them a moment of pause and allows them or it doesn't even necessarily have to be a socially awkward person. It could be someone that gets angry at you or like tells you that you're doing something wrong or whatever. It gives them an opportunity to evaluate their own actions and go, why am I so fucking triggered by this? Why did this person that goes and talks to 20 different people and 19 of them love it and give a great response, and then one person, me, gets really pissed off about it? Like clearly what you're doing isn't the thing that's wrong, it's the response. So it gives that person an opportunity to evaluate their own behavior and go, why am I getting so triggered by this? Which isn't going to happen most of the time because people get locked into their own mentalities. But, you're still giving that opportunity, I would say. I think you're doing a public service by pissing people off, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and those happen so rarely.
Yeah, it's like once a year.
Don't worry about it. Yes,
it's very, very rare that it happens. And here's the thing as well, like talking about people getting results and stuff. Like I can't give a guarantee that it'll happen on the bootcamp, but like the 2-day course that we do on the bootcamp, it's not uncommon that on the first or second day, because it's a 2-day thing, the first day you're not even meant to be getting, it's mostly just about challenging your fears. Some people get phone numbers and dates on the first day. Like these people break their entire fucking reality and they're like, okay, this could never happen for me and it's gonna take years for me to see progress. And then they come on the thing and they talk to people and they're like, oh yeah, I got a date tonight. Like I took a super socially awkward person around Munich and in Germany, where Germans are supposed to be like isolated and have that like, no, you can't do this mindset, you must follow the rules, as a Belgian I'm sure you understand this, but it's like even in that culture, this guy went around and he made friends and he got invited out to a party, and some dude that was a pilot invited him to go out drinking later and even offered him flying lessons. And this is a guy that was like, I haven't had a friend in years. It's like, you just fucking talk to people. Just talk to people and get over your fears. And that's the hardest part. Getting over your fears is the hardest part, which is what I'm here for. We take you into a safe environment and help you push that shit so that you just dismantle all of the nonsense that your ego is telling you about why it will go wrong and why you can't do it. And then you push past all that stuff and you start taking action, and it's like an entire weight is lifted off your shoulders, and then suddenly you're Superman and you can talk to anybody and go anywhere and do anything, and it's wonderful. It's a psychedelic experience.
It is crazy. It is. I remember the feeling of mine. It was like, I couldn't look myself in the mirror anymore and say, Anton, it's not possible anymore, because you proved it to me. You just, I don't know, like, you just show it it's possible. It's so simple as it. And it's so easy to do if you have the courage.
Yeah.
And it was such a cool feeling the moment it was happening, because it was something in real life dissolving in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And then staying after you on the calls, and then I had to give in my okay, what work did you do this week? Stay accountable, and then I just kept the ball rolling, and now I'm doing great in that field. Like I have zero worries anymore.
Once you start to dismantle that, it's a fun process as well to start to challenge your, like, a lot of it is just challenging your own thinking and challenging your own assumptions about things. And you do have this sort of period of like, because you do have to keep up taking the action. You go through this period where it's like you still come up with the excuses, and everybody always, like, I still come up with excuses. Everybody comes up with excuses, but rather than going, oh yeah, that's probably right, and falling prey to them, it's like your mind starts to question them, and it can be really fun to examine the things that your own mind tries to convince you of and be like, oh, that's bullshit, and here's why that's bullshit. But it's really great creative excuse, but it's fucking nonsense, Somebody in the chat, Buggy, says British accent. Yeah, I'm Scottish, though I currently live in Sofia, Bulgaria, because I think the UK is frankly a failing state, and I don't want to live there anymore, unfortunately. Yeah. Right, you got another question?
I do want to. Sorry, yes, I wanted to dial it back for like 10 minutes ago. You was talking about girls approaching guys. Would you agree that, because since I'm approaching people now, I can see that girls give signals as well, but it's way more subtle.
Yeah, I know what you're getting. So I think that, and again, I like to frame all these things as like masculine and feminine rather than male and female, because you get very masculine women, you get very feminine men, but it's a bell curve, it's a spectrum. Generally, men tend to be more masculine, women tend to be more feminine. And I think it is the masculine responsibility to initiate and to lead. It's like it's the sword and the chalice, it's the yin and the yang, it's the outward and the inward, the external and the internal, the fire and the water, all of this stuff. Like it's normal for men and women to be polar to each other, right? And then it's the mixing of these things that makes it's good. And in dating and in all areas of life, this expresses itself in different ways. But in dating, it expresses itself in that the man is generally the initiator. This doesn't mean that women or sort of like the man is the outward role and the woman is the inward one. So the man has to put himself forward and the woman either accepts or rejects. And we inherently understand this. This is why it's the male responsibility to make the move. There's nothing wrong with that. It's normal. There's also nothing wrong with a woman making a move either. Even it's a masculine thing to do. It doesn't make you a masculine person for doing it. And I would honestly argue, and like I have so many female friends that come to me and they're like, why are no guys talking to me and how do I do it? And I have to tell them, like, you got to take the lead on this one. I'm sorry. And they're like, yeah, but I don't want to do this because like if a guy won't come and talk to me, like how do I know he's going to be a good boyfriend and stuff? Like if you can't just like be man enough to do it. And it's like just because they won't initiate the date doesn't mean that they won't take over that lead once they feel comfortable with you. But anyway, I'm digressing. I think it is the male responsibility to do it, but generally how women will, like, it doesn't mean they won't communicate interest, but they'll do it in a far more covert way. So rather than coming over and saying, hey, I think you're really cute, they'll touch their hair or they'll look at you a little bit longer or whatever. And they do also, I think that women are generally more socially competent as well. And I don't necessarily think that's because men can't be socially competent. I just think it's because women are like, they have more innate need for their social circles and their friends, and they're closer in that sort of way. And so they learn these things better. And I think guys can learn this as well. I think I've learned it. I think you've learned it. Like, you learn to pick up on signals better. But most guys can't read these signals for shit. And so they don't understand that that's what's happening. And then women get really frustrated because she's like, well, I gave him all of the signs that he needed. And I'm like, yeah, but did you say it? And they're like, no. And I'm like, well, then he doesn't know. You know, and she's like, yeah, but I touched my hair and I said he looked good today, and like I offered to walk him home and stuff. It's like, yeah, but have you been friends for a while? Yeah. It's like, so he just thinks you're being friendly. You know, I'm sorry, but it's the way of it. But yeah, I think it's normal and natural that women are more covert about their signals, and unless you learn to interpret that stuff, it's you're just not going to pick up on it most of the time. Like there are a lot of guys out there that are really fucking attractive. I'll give you a story. Well, when I was younger, I was maybe like 17, 18, and I just started getting really good at all of this stuff. And people in my circle sort of knew me as the social guy, the dating guy, even though I hadn't started working, like doing it as a career yet. And I was at a house party in a student dorm. And there was this really fucking attractive guy there, like 6'5", long, he looked like Prince Charming, long blonde hair, blue eyes, really big and muscular. All the girls are fucking swooning over him, right? And I can tell by his body language that he's not that confident a person. Like, he's standing in the corner, like holding his drink like this, talking to his friends, whatever. And he's very attractive, but he's clearly not very confident. And he's just surrounded by guys. He's not talking to any of the girls. He has a couple of his guy friends around him. He's just in the corner talking to these guys. And one of the girls comes up to me and she's like, I think this guy's really cute. Like, how do I get him to talk to me? I'm like, you go and you talk to him. She's like, I can't do that. Like, absolutely you can't. Just go over and talk to him and tell him he's attractive and just start a conversation. She's like, I can't do that. I'm like, you absolutely can. She's like, a guy like that would never be into me and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, just try it. See what happens. And so she goes over, and not 5 minutes later, they're walking hand in hand towards her room, right? And she comes out 10 minutes later, and she's like, oh my God, this guy has no idea what he's doing. Like, he's completely fucking incompetent. He's super nervous. Like, blah, blah. I'm like, see, like, just because he's attractive doesn't mean that he's getting the results. And I can't remember what we were talking about before that. Why did I tell this story? Fucking ADD brain.
We were talking about how girls gave like subtle signals to guys.
Yeah, I can't remember why I told that story specifically, but I mean, the point stands. Like, as a woman, if you want, there's nothing wrong with taking the lead and taking some initiative. And just because a guy is attractive doesn't necessarily mean that he's getting results. Like, it really is just about putting yourself out there. And And I think that is a masculine responsibility thing to do, and I think there's nothing wrong with saying that. And I think that as men, we should fucking step up and learn how to do it properly, which is why I teach all of the things that I do. And so if you want to get these kinds of lessons, it's discord.gg/self-improvement, or if that vanity link changes at some point, the link is always in the description. If you go there, there's a bunch of forums. The ones that I actively post in are the behavioral, emotional, and social forums. The behavioral one's finished. The emotional one's barely fucking finished, and then the social one has maybe like 10, 15. There's about 30 posts in total. There's going to be 60 once I finish writing them all. It's all available for free. You can get all of this information, all the things I talk about there. If you want to ask a question or call into the next show, there's a little submissions tab where you can do that. You can call in live and we'll answer your question. I'd actually quite like to do that. I think that would be fun. And if you want to take a free one-on-one coaching call, you can do that as well by DMing me. We do this in private where I go solve your questions. There's different tiers. There's the members tier, which you get access to like special things once I release videos and stuff. I need to add more stuff to the members tier. I'm going to make some video courses, which will be free to members at some point. At the moment, you can just take everything for free. There's really no reason to be a member unless you just want to be supportive. But the coaching access tier, which is more expensive, you get weekly group coaching calls, you get a monthly one-on-one coaching call, you get your own progress thread where we take you from A to B and solve all your fucking social problems, basically. Thank you very much for tuning in. This has been Off the Cuff, the live show. We'll be back at next week at 5 p.m. local to Sofia time. If there's nothing else you want to talk about, Anton, I think I'm going to close it out.
I'm good.
Sorry, Nico.
I was going to say... just as about the last point, as a guy, you should always take the initiative, because I know as the old Anton who would hear this conversation, he would be like, oh yeah, but I'm gonna wait on the first signal from the girl, and then I can make the approach. But it's bullshit, you know. And then
and you might not necessarily. She might be sending you signals that you're not picking up on either.
Yes, exactly. And as if you feel the urge to approach, it's an authentic feeling, and you should follow the feeling.
100%.
Simple as that.
100%. Yeah, there's never anything wrong with expressing authentic interest as long as you do it in an honest and upfront way, and you put forward all of the stuff that might cause problems, use a pre-frame, all that good stuff, and make it clear that you understand the implications of your actions and make the other person comfortable. And if you do that, even when they're not interested, they have a boyfriend, whatever, they will still reward you with like, thank you so much for doing that. And you'll feel better about yourself as a man as well, because you're actually taking authentic action. And that's a very good place to end. Oh. Exactly. Yes. Okay. That was it. Cool. All right. We'll be back next week. I think I'm getting better at the intros and outros. I think I'm because the first couple I had no fucking idea what to say, but I'm starting to get into a rhythm of starting and ending these things. So I'm going to give YouTube a few seconds to catch up, and then I'm going to end the stream because it always cuts me off. So I'm just going to fill the air by staring at the camera.